Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Property Management 101, and for today's topic, we're going to be discussing the most common mistakes maintenance supervisors make, part 2. Now, if you haven't watched part 1 to this video yet, I would highly recommend doing so to watch those 3 common mistakes before diving into these that we're going to be discussing today. I'll provide a link at the end of this video that you can simply click on if you want to watch part 1, or you can click on the link in the video description, and I'll also provide a link that'll take you there in the top corner of the page now. Now, here are 4 additional common mistakes I see that maintenance supervisors make. Number 4, they don't know their numbers. And what I mean by this is they don't know things that are critical to their position. Things like the make-ready turnaround time that their team is trying to strive for and what the team is averaging. Also, what is some of the turnaround times for work orders? What do you try to strive for? What have you been averaging recently? This is something as a maintenance supervisor you should always have your eye on. Also, as a maintenance supervisor, you want to keep in mind things like expenses. Now, you really want to look into things like expenses that are really your big ticket items as a maintenance supervisor your team will spend money on. Things like appliance parts, vendor expenses, landscaping, snow removal, and even pole expenses. These are expenses you should always have an idea of how much you're allotted each month, also how much you've spent each month, so you can make sure you're always staying within your guided budget. Also, as a maintenance supervisor, it's going to be really important for you to know the income you're responsible for. One of the most common things as far as income is going to be things that you're charging back to residents when they move out. So this is something going to be important to know. What is the average we're expecting from a budget perspective that we are supposed to be charging back per year or per month? Also, when it comes to numbers, you should really know as the maintenance supervisor, what is the goal from an occupancy standpoint at that property in that given month or time frame? Also, some other big numbers you really want to know is what are we expecting per month when it comes to the number of move-ins, the number of move-outs, the number of applications, because these are going to be things that you're going to really need to know to prepare you and your team. Thank you for watching this video. Just by you viewing this video and our other videos supports the YouTube algorithm and allows our videos to get in front of more property management operators. If you want to continue to show your support, we would greatly appreciate if you like, subscribe, and share this video with others. Thank you again. The 5th common mistake I often see maintenance supervisors make is they're neglecting preventive maintenance. So when it comes to preventive maintenance, as a supervisor, you should always be taking steps for the future when it comes to what can we do to prevent any type of maintenance coming from down the road. When it comes to preventive maintenance, this is going to be really important because you want to make sure if you're performing preventive maintenance, this will help cut down on things like the average turnaround time when it comes to work orders being completed, as well as you should cut down on the number of work orders. It also should allow your HVACs to run more efficiently. This should always also allow you and your team to have quicker turnaround time for make-readies. This will also help your resident satisfaction scores. So this is really important to make sure that you're doing and performing preventive maintenance, not just for the assets long term, but some of the things you're going to see in the short term as well. Now, when it comes to preventive maintenance, there's a lot of things you can do. One of the big things you can do when it comes to the interior of your units that you have that you're a supervisor for is performing inspections. So that's something to keep in mind. Make sure you and your team are performing regular inspections to check HVACs, check for water leaks, to make sure all doors and windows are locking and sealing correctly. This is a great big step when it comes to that preventive maintenance you and your team can be performing. The 6th most common mistake I see that maintenance supervisors make is that they do not secure a strong vendor network. Now, one of the most common mistakes I see is this dynamic. What happens is a lot of maintenance supervisors, they'll get familiar with a company and the job they'll do, and they'll always depend on that particular company for that trade. That is a big, big mistake. You should have at least 2 companies for every single trade at your property, especially those ones like painters, cleaners, carpet cleaner, and probably most importantly, restoration companies. The problem with having just one company is that there will always be a likelihood of a situation where that company may be short-staffed, or maybe it may not be able to come out in a given time frame that's needed, or maybe just over time their standard slips. This is why it's really important to have at least 2 companies per trade so you can actually go back to the other one that may not be available or may not have the dynamic of short staff and go to them and utilize them when the time is needed. Building up your vendor network is crucial to ensure you keep and maintain a high standard. Make sure when it comes to make-ready dates that you have a low amount of turnaround time, and to assure the property is running optimally. And number 7, As a maintenance supervisor, you want to make sure you're not overlooking any type of safety or compliance dynamics. This is going to be really important that you're taking proactive steps as a maintenance supervisor, making sure that your team, your residents, and any vendors that are working at your property are in a safe environment. Oftentimes I see what maintenance supervisors do is they'll have the mentality of, hey, we're meeting OSHA requirements or I'm following the company's guidelines, but this is just simply doing the bare minimum. You want to make sure as a maintenance supervisor taking extra and additional steps to making sure your team and everyone involved are in a very safe position when it comes to anything that could occur. Here are some tips that I'm going to provide you that you can take as a maintenance supervisor proactively when it comes to ensuring your team, your residents, and your vendors are in a safe environment. One thing I always like to do is have a small first aid kit put in every single golf cart or company vehicle, in the office, in the maintenance shop, just to ensure if there is an incident, everyone can quickly get to that first aid kit and everyone knows where it's at. As a maintenance supervisor, you should actually have a process where you periodically check these first aid kits to make sure they're stocked up, to make sure nothing in them is expired, to ensure that they are ready if a situation comes up. Also, you want to make sure when you get a new employee at your particular property or company that you have a process that's built into your training to show this employee where these first aid kits are located, who to notify if it is out of something. Also, you want to make sure that you're following up with your team when it comes to updating them and reminding them where these first aid kits are. In addition to first aid kits, here's some other things that I would highly recommend having at your property or at your company office to ensure your team can operate in a safe environment. You want to make sure you have things like flashlights, headlamps, reflective vests, protective eyeglasses, and even eye wash stations. There are many other things that you can consider that may be great things to add amongst those ones that I've already mentioned to make sure your team's in a safe environment, but those are some things I would recommend to get started. Now, a lot of those things I talked about are really proactive approaches when it comes to making sure your team's in a safe environment. Here's some things to consider if a situation comes up. Number one, you really want to make sure your entire team knows local things when it comes to the local police station, the local fire station, and the closest hospital nearby. You also want to make sure that your residents know that information as well. This should be included in things like move-in packets or reminder notices that go out. For example, for your residents, what you want to make sure you're doing is, hey, when do they call 911? When do they contact you? When do they contact the utility company when it comes to after hours emergencies? So this is going to be good to include in the move-in packet as well, and periodically remind your residents as well. Regarding your employees, if there's an emergency that happens, what is that process? Who do they contact? Where do they go? This is really going to be important you include this in the training as well for all new employees at your particular company or property. And for a video recap today, please keep in mind these 4 additional common mistakes that maintenance supervisors make. Number 4, not knowing your numbers. As a maintenance supervisor, you should have a good grip when it comes to the expected average turnaround time for make readies, for work orders. You should also have a good knowledge when it comes to the strategy of the property, the ideal occupancy of the property, the expected amount of move-ins, the expected amount of move-outs per month. This can be really important so you and your team can prepare for these things. Number 5, neglecting preventative maintenance. As a maintenance supervisor, what can you do to cut down when it comes to work orders or turnaround time? And what steps are you taking each and every day or periodically as a maintenance supervisor to improve the property's long-term asset value? Number 6, building a strong vendor network. This one I find very, very common with maintenance supervisors. Too often they're dependent on one type of vendor per trade. They don't have a big vendor network. You should have a situation you're always looking for additional vendors as backups, or if a vendor provides maybe the same service or for the same price but a higher standard. These are things as a maintenance supervisor you should always be considering and have your eye out for. And lastly, number 7, overlooking safety and compliance. What are you doing to not only meet OSHA requirements and your company's requirements, but other things as well? Do you have products at your particular property or in your company vehicles or golf carts that help when it comes to reacting if there's a situation like a first aid kit? What's the process for keeping them stocked? What's the process for checking things in there to make sure they're not expired? This is a really good thing to make sure that you're doing as a maintenance supervisor as well. Thank you for watching till the end of the video. I hope this video provided at least one valuable tip for you and your teams. Your feedback is very important to us. Please leave a comment if you have any suggestions as far as how can we improve this video, or if you have any questions, or if there's aspects of this video that you felt that we left out on on this subject. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to show your support, please feel free to like the video, as well as comment what your favorite part of the video was. Happy leasing!